Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this very sunny and even warm. We have plus 5 degrees today, Helsinki, Finland. Plenty to talk about today, as usual, in the short-term timeframes. Not too much to update in the higher-term timeframes, although I do want to go over a signal that I'm preparing for in the next, 36 hours from now, essentially correlating with Wednesday's closure. That would be tomorrow, obviously. So with that in mind, that's going to really help out with the biases for the next, probably the next big move to come. But ultimately, I'm actually not really looking for the big bad move, as I think a lot of people are discussing it as, until probably around end of month, although we very likely see the initial etchings of it in this next 36-hour period. But ultimately, we are within the dead portion of this market right now, of which very reminiscent in late 2018, early 2019, and all boring periods in between. So with that in mind, I do want to wish you the best as always. And I think... I want to start off over here on the Krown trading application. The only thing that I want to mention on the Krown trading application is that we actually have our anniversary sale going on right now, 20% off of all programs. As always, make sure that you watch the promotional videos that accompany anything that you might be considering to get invested in, as they're going to explain who they're for, who they're not for, and then it's up to you to make the decision whether it's going to be a good match or not. As always, I just don't want people to rush into these things because FOMO, sale, whatever the hell it might be. Understand that for most people, programs, indicators, whatever it might be, are usually actually not applicable, simply because most people probably have a life outside of this and don't need these sort of things. And I always want to say with the main programs that I host, that being the TA program and the options program, as I kind of call them out over here, they are very big time commitments, as well as financial commitments as well. And realistically, while I stand by these programs as kind of my life's work, I always want to be saying that, hey, unless you actually have the time to invest in these sort of things, you're probably not going to get too much out of it. So make sure that if you are going to do that, that you can actually, get some out of it, which implies that you have, free time within your day to actually invest in such things. All right, cool. So now that we got off that topic, we're going to swing back into the underlying market dynamics a little bit later in the context of this analysis. I want to start off with the most heavy hitting stuff first, and that is going to be the 5-day signal over here. We're looking at volatility, momentum, and trend in this case, in that order actually, which typically it's actually kind of inverted right there. I like to look at trend, volatility, and then momentum, but in this case we see sort of the puzzle pieces aligning in that way. The first and most important portion of this puzzle is of course the 5-day volatility read as defined by the BBWP. Now with that said, we do see that the 5-day BBWP is at the lowest level comparatively to the last couple of years, actually going back to 2020 right here. In the last 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 times over here, that we've seen 5-day volatility this low, it has resulted in a very, very common and replicated, result. That is, we will backtest this right in front of your very face. Again, these are all correlating to the green vertical bars right here, especially the ones in the last year, are very, very similar to each other. But of course, again, volatility is direction neutral, but I do want to start off with the first iteration over here from signal given to next major stop in price action, about a, almost 50% move right there, 46.5% to the downside, as you can see. The next one coming off the July bear trap over the summer, and that did lead into, Jesus Christ, that is loud. I apologize. That did lead into the next 43% move to the upside from that signal given to the next major high. I'm going to turn down my computer's volume because that is disturbingly high right now. And then, of course, what happens after that? We get another very similar low volatility signal coming out of the $40,000 higher low off of the end of about Q3 in that case, and that did lead Bitcoin up to its current all-time high, another 44% move. So all of these thus far having a very close result. And then of course the most recent one, not including our current iteration, would be the last downside signal, of which we did see about 42.33% to the downside. And then once again, as you can see, we are coming off of these same relatively low regions. So I do want to call that out because that very likely does lead into the next, let's just call it 45% move from current price action. And just adding or subtracting 45% from our current price action should naturally give us some well, some confluential areas to be measuring other things with. So from our current area, if we were to add 45% to the upside, that would put Bitcoin in the mid $50,000 territory. Keep that number in mind. We're going to come back to that a few more times a little bit later. Obviously, to the downside, going to be somewhere down around like low 20s. In this case, about $22,000. Both of these are actually going to correlate very, very well with technical targets that are going to be contingent upon a major signal that I think at earliest we might see tomorrow. Again, what's going to matter most in kind of deciding the long-term resolution of this is quite literally price action, which is the more unsexy way of looking at this, but basically below $37,000 on a daily closure or a higher term time frame than that. Absolutely. I am looking for the general move to the downside for that to occur. To the upside, $44,500 would be the earliest that I'd be looking at on a daily. If I'm looking at a 5-day or a weekly, I could move that down to about $43,000. Anyways, what we're going to do next is we're going to kind of extrapolate on those technical signals. So for the upside, that would be more relevant in the case of looking at this price action. Let me just see. Actually, don't have it right here. Let's go to this chart right here. Nope, not that chart. Not this chart. There we go. This would be the more lenient of the two scenarios, of which we do see, a bit of a higher low structure right here, which would be constructing an ascending triangle, which does have a technical target based off of the confirmed breakout, again, above that $44,500 region, with a move all the way up to about $55,000, $56,000. Very similar to what we just looked at as far as the 5-day BBWP goes. And then, of course, it's also right in line with the 3.272 Fibonacci extension from our current base. So really good confluence right there. On top of that, to take it one step further, we do see on the weekly, Bitcoin would theoretically, if it does pop back above about 43 on a weekly closing basis, confirm another higher low right here. So a few higher lows, a succession of higher lows, and confirm a couple drives of hidden bullish divergence. Right now, we don't have that, but obviously if Bitcoin were to trade back and close back above even $41,000, that would start to be confirmed right here. And that would have a natural target first at about 52, and then second would be about 57. So very close to those other targets that we were just looking at. To the downside, how can we overlay this sort of activity? Well, it's actually quite simple right here. This is just the most simplistic chart, and it's been working for a long time. And well, if this were to happen, I don't really have a reason not to believe that Bitcoin does come down significantly, of which that would be the monthly MACD signal crossing to the downside. It's happened 3 times in the past, not including our current iteration right here. Then combine that with a closure below the white 20 simple moving average on this chart. And that has led down each and every time to a move to the 55 exponential moving average, to this green moving average right here. Sometimes you get a little bit of a wick lower, that's fine, but generally speaking, you find your closing lows around that region. So this would be 2014, this would be 2018 right here, this would be more recently in 2020 off of the Rona dump, and then obviously as Bitcoin does already have the monthly MACD cross the downside right here, just kind of waiting upon a monthly closure below the 20 simple, which is about $38,000. If that happens, guess where the 55 is? About $23,500 to $24,000. Very, very much in alignment with that last target that we did see off of the expansion on volatility to the downside, and very likely bounces along the way as well. Just like to the upside, there's going to be pullbacks along the way as well. Anyways, the signal that I'm looking for tomorrow that can add a bit more of a clarity onto the picture would be the 5-day stochastic momentum signal right here, of which I've gone ahead and done the same thing on this chart. So, meaning that I've marked off the green vertical bars here correlated with those low volatility reads that we did see on the 5-day. And then I'm now matching up with a momentum oscillator to get a bias on direction in seeing, historically speaking, how this one has played around with those signals in the past, especially the ones in the last year here. So in this first iteration, we do see this one in early May. Obviously, that was the downside signal. And guess what? 5-day stochastic momentum was heading to the downside on that expansion phase. And most importantly, it was actually losing the bullish control zone all at the same time. That was right here. Then obviously, we go into another iteration of it coming out at the end of July on the bear trap from 30,000 to, an ultimate price of 69. But in this case, what was of interest right here, as I actually place it in the proper area, there we go. We do see that it was upside momentum, and also more importantly, working its way out of the bullish controls, out of the bearish control zone, getting into the neutral zone. Then we get another iteration right here after that pullback in October to $40,000 higher low. And what do you know? It turns back up, and that was your march on to new all-time highs. Beautiful. And then in the December signal, when we did see that major downside move, what do you know? Again, 5-day stochastic momentum pointed and postured to the downside, nice and, well, not so healthily for the blue laws, but obviously, nice and obvious signal right here. Again, losing the bullish control zone at the same time. So very much conclusive. And for what it's worth right now, and the reason why I'm putting so much weight on this and being patient with this myself is, well, we do see the 5-day stochastic momentum is actually still within the context of the bearish control zone I'd consider right here. Tomorrow night's closure, yeah, it's going to be tomorrow night's closure, we'll have a chance to once again cross it back onto the upside, and more importantly, and what would really matter, a lot in this current iteration would be it would be working its way out of the bearish control zone yet again, similar to what we saw over the summer bear trap actually. If that condition were met, what is that condition, you might be asking? 38,330 by tomorrow night's closure on the daily. I believe that's 8 p.m. Eastern time, as we have changed our clocks now. So do be aware of that. If Bitcoin does close above there, I'd say that definitely increases the probabilities that the blue laws take over and actually do put in a massive higher low right here. And probably around end of month, we start to see that move get more compelling to the upside, but, still price action does rule everything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into the short-term timeframes. This video is already 11 minutes long. I'm going to try my best to keep this one on the shorter side because, I mean, it's been very simplistic the last few days here, but, what do we see right here on the 4-hour? We see the exact same ranges, working off the exact same chart that we've had in for a while now. It's basically been sell the 0.5 at just under $40,000 and buy the blue box right here on the very short-term time frames, play the bounce at 38.5, of which I don't want to toot my own horn in this case. I just want to kind of show this over the past couple weeks simply because, this is a lot of the time what trading is. Very much requiring of patience, but quite obvious and quite simplistic. And during these very low volatility and boring periods, you will find these setups just, they take a bit of patience for them, and it's nothing flashy, it's nothing crazy. And despite all of the, Bitcoin going to 100x or Bitcoin going to 100,000 or Bitcoin going to 20,000, these are the same sort of people, in my opinion. These are the same sort of people, looking for the moonshot or the doom shot. It's the same person, and it's so funny to me because both of these people talk shit about each other, not realizing that they just got caught by the different bug, right? I mean, some people get addicted to drinking fucking detergent, laundry detergent, right? And while at some point those targets may be relevant, they're not right now. Playing for those moves in the last, realistically in the last year has not been profitable, but even in the last couple of months right here, going back to January, when we really started getting this range, way back on over here actually, it's just been range plays. That's all. Very unsexy, but does get the job done. Anyways, in this case, I pretty much have the same thing that stays before. Bitcoin did get its move up yesterday, as we did say was likely. Did not clear, more importantly, on a closing basis above about 39,900, tested exactly right to there, but rejection thus far, or rejection obviously. So I don't really have anything new to say about this. Do I think that Bitcoin's getting ready for another test back down to the blue box right here between about 37 and 37.5? Probably, probably. But ultimately, this range is getting incredibly tight, and I do hesitate to really play it myself again until we get that next resolution, actually. So for kind of making this as simple as possible, or hopefully as simple as possible, I would constitute a range break to the downside with a full hour closure, resolving this range and be getting targets down to $34,500 to $35,000 right here with any sort of a 4-hour closure on new lows. In this case, that's been about 37,100. Whatever might have you close enough in that case. To the upside, I would call a range resolution, thus looking for an extension, $1,500 to $2,000 higher with any sort of an hourly closure, basically above yesterday's spike high, that being $40,000, let's say. Even if it's getting back above there would probably be good enough to be fair, but patience, I suppose, is is a good idea in this case as well. And yes, at that point, I'd be looking for another move over here, let's just call it $41,500 to $42,000 or so. And from there, I do think that Bitcoin probably does bust on through after a bit of a short-term pullback to the upside. But again, need to see above 44.5 for full-on confirmation of that in the way that I look at things, or full-on validation, depending upon which terminology you want to be using. For the short term right now, though, Bitcoin does look like she's ready for another test of the downside here. Let's go see what Stochastic Momentum is saying about short-term timeframes, as we do see 4-hour Stochastic Momentum freshly pointed to the south side below 39.3. Should be aware that on this fall, there should be a bit of a trend line coming in right around this region here. So would that imply that we do see a few down ticks? Perhaps yes, but I would be looking for maybe another bounce on that regression test. I imagine all lower term timeframes probably in the same posturing here. Hourly is down below about 38,650, so not great. As Bitcoin currently trading about $300 below there. Buy hourly is nose diving right there, below 39.6, I should say. 3 hour is also nose diving below 39.3, and 6 hour is going to freshly turn down below 38,150, which Bitcoin obviously is currently above right now, but short-term timeframes do look like they're poised for another try towards the downside. And then, of course, the 12-hour and the daily, both heftily down here. Daily is down below about 40,250, so that would even be the short-term timeframe range resolution to the upside. Again, about 40,000 bucks. 12-hour 39.2 is magical number right there. And then the 2-day, I think, is where things get a little more nasty, below 40,150. And then, of course, I did forget to mention this as well. On the 2-day chart, I believe we're about to confirm another drive of hidden bearish divergence right here with any sort of a closure here or lower end of day today. So do I think that one matters as much as the 5-day signal? No, but just something to kind of keep an eye out for, as that would obviously juice the probabilities in favor of the bears here. If that condition was met. So I think that's a good place for me to leave this one off, nice and short and sweet here. Hopefully this was in some way helpful. Really big eyes on the closure tomorrow. Obviously it's going to be, a Fed day as well. And then probably looking for, the real move, probably around the last week of this month. So hopefully this was helpful. I forgot to mention this over here, but it's basically the same thing on the open interest as well. I'm looking for this to come down to below 10 billion before I call that a reset again, thus be getting, another decent bounce. I do have alerts in for that, which you can do as well. And then the funny rates are, they might as well be zero. It's what's it called? It's splitting hairs here, but it actually would be on the short-term side, a little bit more on the bearish side, to be fair. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. I'll be signing off now. Take care. Wishing you well as always, and see you hopefully soon.